crisis and the debate over involuntary treatment.
I think involuntarily committing somebody is the worst avenue, but sometimes it's the only avenue.
The complex challenge of helping those in need without adding to the harm. Julie Wong examines the experience of Washington State, the law, the logistics, and the lessons for Canada.
In the state of Washington, like many places across North America, a drug epidemic has taken over.
You could be walking down the street and next thing you know, you look to your right and you see someone just using.
Every year, hundreds overdose and die in this state. Many more survive, then do it all again.
People will use whatever they can get their hands on.
Washington State has something Canada doesn't have right now. It can force someone with addictions into treatment against their will. So we came here to find out how it works.
It all started with a man named Ricky Garcia.
Ricky would light up the room. He was extremely funny. He had a beautiful smile.
But Ricky was also an addict. Alcohol and opioids.
Ricky's drug of choice was yes, please.
Between 2010 and 2012, he was in and out of emergency rooms and ICUs, his friend Lauren Davis by his side. She admits to using the state's Mental Health Involuntary Treatment Act to get Ricky treatment 6 times. In disbelief, there was nothing similar for substance use.
I just remember thinking, how can that be?
In 2012, Ricky went into long-term recovery. Then both he and Davis lobbied for what would eventually become Ricky's Law.
Sometimes you need someone to say no for you when you can't say no for yourself. Because I could not be involuntarily committed to substance abuse treatment, I nearly died.
Every life is worth saving, no matter the diagnosis.
It allows the state to force someone with substance use issues into treatment.
My floor desk is just here.
It pushed Davis into public service. In 2018, she was elected a state representative.
Why do you think involuntarily committing someone is the best avenue?
I don't think involuntarily committing somebody is the best avenue. I think involuntarily committing somebody is the worst avenue, but sometimes it's the only avenue.
One criticism of laws like this is that it takes people's rights and freedoms away because they don't have that choice anymore. It's made for them. How do you respond to those critics?
There is no provision in United States or Canadian law that could compel a person, to ongoing recovery in perpetuity. They ultimately have to make that choice. But when a person is so sick, they've lost the gift of choice at that point. And so it gives them that opportunity back.
In Washington State, there are 4 treatment facilities for Ricky's Law.
Hi, so nice to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
The director of one of them, Recovery Place Kent, invited us inside.
When a person is in crisis, they really need someone to step in and really look at what's going on with them and get them help that they need when they're not able to.
Patients arrive from hospital in an ambulance and are moved to an intake room.
We do a skin check, we get them a shower, we do screening questions.
Here, there are 16 involuntary treatment beds for substance use.
These are the types of rooms that patients live in. They're set up with the basics, but they are allowed to bring books, magazines, and photos.
We couldn't show patient gathering spaces due to confidentiality. Here, they take part in activities and group sessions where they learn about triggers, relapse, and prevention. As we toured, we noticed how secure the building was.
Does it start to feel like a jail when you can only get in and out of a place with badges, when everything's locked, when you might have to restrain someone?
I don't look at it like that because we look at it as treatment. I think the amazing approach that we have to patient care overshadows the stigma that we often deal with involuntary commitment. This is not jail.
After an initial 5-day hold, a court decides if a patient will be held for days or even months longer. The hope is the patient chooses to voluntarily get treatment, a forced sober second thought. Hardy says about a third of the people who complete a court-ordered treatment here end up relapsing and coming back.
Do you see it as a failure if someone comes back, if it didn't work the first time to have them involuntary committed and then they're back again?
Absolutely not a failure. No, we don't believe in failures here. It's a chance to help them again, to work on things.
Running around here, it made me feel like at home.
Christoph Burgos believes involuntary treatment saved his life. In March, Burgos was in crisis.
I was
practically dead when I went to the hospital, and the doctors were like, dude, if you keep drinking, you're going to die. And your nostrils are inflamed from all the cocaine, and your liver or your kidneys are failing because of the pills.
From there, he was sent here.
Do you remember what went through your head when you found out that you were involuntarily committed?
I was very upset, very upset.
But that soon changed for Burgos.
Coming here and being able to actually stay away from alcohol, which was my main vice, it made me realize, dude, you don't need alcohol. It's not good for you.
He was discharged after 30 days.
Do you think you would have gotten to a point where you decided you needed help?
I was trying to kill myself, so I don't think I would have.
So this saved your life?
Yeah.
But even the woman behind the law admits it isn't perfect.
The process for civil commitment is very clunky. It's both a medical process, but it's also a legal process.
There could be lessons learned from how the law rolled out in Washington state, like the infrastructure that's required, the number of staff needed, and the logistics that have to be sorted out so the system works for the people it's intended to help.
We don't detain because they've been out drinking alcohol. It's the imminence behind it.
Designated crisis responders, or DCRs, make the call about who is involuntarily committed, but they say there aren't enough of them to meet demand. Another issue, facilities can decline patients with complex needs.
Even though somebody might meet criteria per our laws, we might not be able to find a facility to actually take them.
On top of that, it can be hard to find ambulances to get patients to open beds.
One thing that we're up against is transportation from the other side of the state, Eastern Washington. They don't have enough transportation available, so people are in the emergency room for 2 to 3 days while they're waiting to come here.
As the drug crisis becomes more visible, there's urgency in finding a solution.
The Tacoma Needle Exchange is the first legally sanctioned syringe exchange in the United States. This community, like many others across North America, are grappling with how to respond and react to the opioid crisis.
And this is the dispensary. So here we have syringes, various gauges, we have cookers, cottons.
Here, they help roughly 3,500 clients a year.
In the years since Ricky's Law came into effect, do you feel like it's had an impact visibly? So I'm talking about
No.
on the streets, just in general.
No.
Then do you think it's worth it to have a law like that?
Personally, no, I don't. I think that it makes people feel good. And I do think that there are folks that, that really would have liked that law to be around when their loved ones were struggling with substance use disorder.
At the same time, even Lakoski is conflicted.
I don't think people should be snatched off the street and thrown into treatment. Although I'm going to be completely honest, if I were the parent of a child who was in that situation, I would feel relieved if they were detained and involuntary committed.
I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Isaiah Fillmore understands that nuance. The 23-year-old is a recovering addict. Less than 3 weeks after this photo was taken, he overdosed and realized he had to make different choices.
I'm not getting any younger. How long am I going to keep going, until I just lose all opportunity and chances to live a better life? It's just, I can't do that to my family.
Fillmore went to treatment voluntarily. It was the second time. He's now looking for a job and hopes to go to college. While he says involuntary treatment could help some, he doesn't think it would have worked on him. He says he had to get to a point where he wanted to change.
When you want something, no matter what the circumstances are, you will do anything to get what you want.
Jonathan Buchholz feels the same way. He treats patients with substance use disorders and is a critic of involuntary treatment.
When folks are forced into treatment, there's actually inconsistent evidence that forced treatment has good long-term outcomes for people. It would be better if we spent more time and resources treating folks who wanted treatment.
He says there are details Canadians should look for if similar legislation is presented.
At what point do you determine that someone has the capacity to make a decision for themselves?
For Lauren Davis, Ricky's story ultimately ended in tragedy. In 2020, after 8 years of sobriety, he relapsed. He was detained 4 times under Ricky's Law. In May 2023, while in the throes of addiction and traumatized by previous detainments, Ricky ran south to Oregon to escape his own law.
Ricky himself came to this Capitol campus and begged lawmakers to save lives like his. He believed in it, and it saved his life multiple times. And when he was using, he was terrified of it. And I don't blame him.
Loved ones found Ricky and he came home. He entered treatment voluntarily, but 36 hours later, he was dead.
Do you think it says something, though, that Ricky, who you said was very smart, who knew the law, understood how it worked, that he himself, after all of that, did not want to be subject to it?
There's nothing about this disease that is rational, and it doesn't respond to logic.
With all its imperfections and aspirations, Davis still believes in Ricky's law, even as the debate over whether it's right or wrong persists.
And I will never minimize the trauma that Ricky did experience because of his civil commitments. I would do it again. I mean, I got 10 more years with him because of civil commitment, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
So Davis wants something good to come from Ricky's experience, and she's working on a law to make the physical process of detaining someone less traumatic.
Lots in your story that's interesting. What did you find notable as you did your reporting?
Yeah, many people told us that they didn't like to see people involuntarily detained. You know, we heard that from critics of Ricky's law. We heard that from Davis, our state lawmaker. But at the same time, sometimes they also acknowledge that maybe there isn't another option. So watching people wrestling with these opposing views and seeing them wrestle with that conflict was really striking.
And remind us, Julia, where things stand in terms of the law in Canada.
So there's a reason why I'm standing here tonight in the Alberta legislature. This province has signaled that it will be bringing forward what it calls compassionate intervention legislation. And it's not alone. There are other provinces that are also discussing this, like Ontario and BC. But so far, Alberta's the only one with concrete plans, and it says it plans to introduce that legislation in the spring.
Julia Wong in Edmonton tonight.